Hey sports fans, it's me, Sportsman Z, Bob Zolke, here with another video. And in today's video I'm going to discuss what I do to prepare for an upcoming season. And I want to get some thoughts from everybody out there also on what you do and how you do it. The first thing that I always do is I put together a spreadsheet with the statistics of the players on my team if you're in a keeper league. If you're in a keeper league and you know you have so many people that you can bring back, for instance, in one of my leagues, in the Elmwood League, which I discussed in an earlier video, we are allowed to keep 20 players and bring them back. And so if you have a 40-man roster, or you have 38 players, or however many you have to cut anything over 20. And so you decide which of those players you cut, and then you have the 20. And then I put the stats of those players into a spreadsheet so that I know who I have at what positions, how many starting pitchers, how many relievers, and what their statistics are, including I'll also write down, I'll also put in the spreadsheet at least batting average of versus left and versus right, and and I put that together so that I can start to prepare for the upcoming league draft. And really, this should be done right after the season ends. Once the final statistics are in, you should start putting the spreadsheet together, not only of your players, so that you know who you're going to keep, what 20 you're going to keep, but also you should start putting together a spreadsheet of the players who are expected to be available in the draft. You know that the players that you're cutting will obviously be available in the draft, and you may want some of them back just as backup players. You also know that players that were new and didn't have a card previously at least should be available. Depends on if you have a league where you can draft minor leaguers, but in Elmwood we can't draft minor leaguers. So a player who just appeared in the major leagues this year could not possibly have been in a previous or on a team in a previous season and could not be kept by any previous team, so they would be available in the draft. But it depends on what type of league you're in. Some minor leaguers may already have been drafted as minor leaguers previously, but you have to do your research, put together a sheet that, as best as you can do, reflects what players are available for you to draft in your league's upcoming draft. In the case of Elmwood, the draft is in February, so from the time the season ends, I have a long time, plenty of time to put together a spreadsheet of my players that I intend to keep and their statistics, and also the statistics of all players that are going to be available in the draft. Another resource that you can refer to is you take the current league that you're playing in, the current league file, and you go to the free agent list, because players that are on the free agent list, again, depending on your league, maybe there was a player that's moved to the free agent list because he was overused and the commissioner puts him on that list. But in general, you can refer to that list also to find out what players will be available for your draft in the upcoming year. So now, once you put that sheet together, you have a list of who you're going to have next year that you can keep, whether that's one player or no players or 20 players. And then you know probably a good percentage of the players that are going to be available in the draft. I mean, every year I miss a few, I always do, but you can try to get a feel for how many players you're going to have available. And one way to catch as many as possible, although this it is time consuming, but right from the time a season starts, anytime you see a new player on a roster, put him into the spreadsheet and then keep tracking his stats every so often and type them into the spreadsheet, or just wait until the end, just put his name in there and then wait until the end, put his stats in. But if you add players to a spreadsheet like that throughout the season, there's less of a chance you're going to miss anyone, or you'll miss as few as possible. So that's another way to do that, because if you do it at the end, you're bound to miss some. But still, you probably have a list that's probably 75%, maybe 80% of all the available players. And that's a good start. You're going to have the good players, the ones that came up, the rookies that came up, had really great seasons. You're going to know about them. Players that were on the free agent list, maybe they were on the free agent list because they had a down year coming off those cards, but they had big years in the season that was being played. Again, those are easily identifiable. So you might miss some guys that didn't have a lot of playing time or were not that good, or whatever the case may be. But you're going to have a pretty solid list once you do that. Then the question is, what sources do you use to do more research on those players? And my answer is everything that you can possibly get your hands on, use. I use the magazines, the preview magazines every year. They come out. Avalon puts them out. Street and Smith puts them out. You have you've got the Baseball Forecaster. I use this at times. And I also, one of my favorites is Baseball Prospectus. Now, Baseball Prospectus and really the Baseball Forecaster you can buy in bookstores, Barnes and Noble. You can order them on Amazon. In fact, I know for a fact with Baseball Prospectus, you can pre-order that through Amazon, and I always do. I love Baseball Prospectus. Now, they all have their differences, different information that they'll give you. They'll all have different projections on who's going to play, who's projected to be in the starting lineup, who's projected to be in the starting rotation. But that's good because that gives you a lot of different perspectives to draw on to try to figure out exactly who is expected to play. Because the last thing you want to do is draft a guy that isn't in a team's plans. And I'll give you a little tip that I use. It's my own personal tip. You could disagree with it if you want to. But I try to avoid drafting players from the Oakland A's, the Tampa Bay Rays, and sadly the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox because they're rebuilding and you never really know what they're going to be doing and who's going to play for them. The Tampa Bay Rays because they take an unorthodox approach to roster construction, and you never know if they're going to use a guy as an opener or as a middle guy, whatever they do with their starters and their relievers. Other teams are duplicating Tampa Bay to a certain degree, but nobody really does it like Tampa Bay. So especially if you're taking a starting pitcher, I'm always cautious of taking a starting pitcher from Tampa Bay because I don't know if they'll be a starter or not. And then the Oakland A's, because the Oakland A's, again, Billy Beane, he has sometimes, I mean, he's a pioneer and the dude is one of the best GMs in baseball, but sometimes he has some crazy ideas, things that he does, utilization of players. A case in point when he traded Donaldson away. So you never really know what the A's are going to do. And again, you don't know if they're going to use a guy in the starting rotation, especially guys who have been two-way, like they've been a starter, they've been a reliever. You have no idea if the A's are going to use him as a starter or a reliever, or whether they're just going to keep doing the swing man thing with him. So I try to avoid drafting players that I'm going to depend on off those three teams, because if I draft a starter, I want to know the guy is going to start for the team that he's playing on. If I draft a reliever, I want to know that he's going to be a reliever and that he's going to pitch a lot. And if I pick like a third baseman, I want to know that the guy is going to be the third baseman for the team, and he's not going to be a guy that just sits on their bench sometimes and sometimes plays, or plays third base, second base, first, right field. You know, things I want reliable things that I can rely on. If I need a third baseman, I want a third baseman. If I want a starting pitcher, I want a starting pitcher. If you draft off the White Sox, at least right now, as things are right now, if you draft off the White Sox, Tampa Bay, or the Oakland A's, you never know if you're going to get that. So that's one tip. And as I said, I love Baseball Prospectus. Most of these the magazines and like Baseball Forecaster and Baseball Prospectus will all try to predict what the players' statistics will be in the coming year. Although I found that there isn't really one that's any more accurate than any other. They're all speculation based on their own formulas for projecting that, and there isn't really one that stands out to me as one that is really accurate. But again, if you use the magazines, you use the Forecaster, you use Prospectus, you can kind of get a picture of what might happen, and you can do your own analysis and extrapolate your own conclusions from using as much information as you can possibly get. And so I love to do that. Now, Baseball Prospectus also has, like, they'll say humorous little things about players. And one thing I'll say about Prospectus is that they tend towards being very critical of players and very critical of their upside and what they can accomplish. So if they rave about a player, or even if they give a mediocre review of a player, you can probably, at least you can bet that they think that player is going to be pretty good. Because if they don't think that the guy has any kind of future, isn't going to play, could be out of baseball in a couple of years, whatever, they're going to let you know that. So that's one good thing about the about Prospectus. The Forecaster, of course, has its unique. They all give you the statistics for all the players, and then they have their own way of projecting what the player will do. And then, of course, the magazines. And you'll find that the magazines differ wildly, too, on who they think is going to play, who's going to be the starters at every position, who is going to even be on the bench. So again, you have to take all of that information and use it as best you can to make your own, to come to your own conclusion about who the best players will be for you to draft. And then you use all that, and then you go into the draft, and hopefully you put together a good team. And that's really across the board. Like hockey, I do that for hockey too. I do a lot of those same things for hockey, although hockey doesn't. There used to be a hockey prospectus, and if anybody out there knows if there still is, I'd love to hear from you, because I would love to get it. I got one year, but I haven't seen one lately, so I don't know if there's any more hockey prospectus out there. But I would love to get it. But I do get the magazines. I get as many hockey preview magazines as I can. And I get as many hockey books and whatever that I can read, that I can use to put together my analysis of what I should have going into the draft. And the same thing, I make the spreadsheets of all my players, the players that I can keep coming back, all of that. So that's just my tips on preparing for your upcoming seasons, whether it's hockey, which I'm in the process of doing right now, is getting ready for my hockey season. And really, I've already got the spreadsheets put together. I've already bought a couple of magazines. I'm a subscriber to the Hockey News. So I'm working on that, and I expect to be ready for the drafts. But, and then the baseball drafts and what have you. And it really applies. The same thing basically applies to even if you're in a football league or if you're in a basketball league too, I would imagine. depending on which of these types of resources are available, but there's always preview magazines for every sport. So again, I hope you found that video both entertaining and informative. And here are my contacts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to contact me, drop me a note on one of those. I'll get it, and you can leave a comment below if you're on the computer. I've heard that you can't do it on the phone, so if you're on the computer, then go for it. And give me a subscribe if you aren't subscribed to the channel, and I will talk about things that you want to hear about. And for right now, that's me, Sportsman Z, Bob Zuhlke, signing off.